This is the Voice of Morgantown show. My name is Brad Smith. I'm here with Rush. Rush, we are talking today about how the Mountaineers can turn this season around, create some positivity, how we can, make this at least somewhat successful here in Rich Rodriguez's first year. Rush, I think it's important that we start by saying that last year, Rich Rodriguez, when he was at Jacksonville State, they started off 0-3. They ended up finishing 9-5. Winning the Conference USA Championship. So we don't want to count Rich Rod out. He does have a history of turning seasons around and creating success. First of all, do you think there's any chance that we can make that happen? We can have a winning record this year? Any chance at all, man?
No, we just don't have the guys that we need to have. And those who are left, whether, some are injured, so they're gone, obviously. And then just who's left, I just don't think it's power four caliber. I mean, I think some of these guys, there's questions if they're mid-major caliber. I just think we're very depleted as it stands, and we're very young. However, just because we don't have the chance to have a winning season doesn't mean we can't figure out how to have this season be successful and build momentum into next season. You can, as counterintuitive as it sounds, you can have success, but not have a winning record for the year. Obviously, this is about long-term.
Totally agree. I think one of the very first things we need to look at, Rush, is we need to find a quarterback and stick with him. We've had, quite a shuffle on our starting quarterback. I'm not sure that Rich Rod still knows exactly who he wants to be his guy. Khalil Wilkins and Scotty Fox right now make the most sense because we're obviously building for the future. I like them both. I think right now the guy who looks most prepared to win games to me is Scotty Fox. What do you think, man?
So, yes, I think Scotty Fox has the more upside, but I also think he has the lower floor. One drive, he can look like, oh, this is our quarterback of the future. Nothing's stopping him. And then the next drive, he's throwing it right to a linebacker in the middle of the field, and there's no wide receiver to be seen. And you're just like, what was that? So he's definitely kind of that ride or die type of guy. With Wilkins, obviously, we've seen a little of that. Like we saw him stare a cornerback right in the eyes and get a pick six last game against BYU. And I feel like his strength last game was he was basically not even running an Army offense. He was running the single option. And BYU still have a little bit of trouble tackling him. So obviously he is mobile. I think the passing is still yet to be seen. I think with him, his problem is not necessarily his arm and the ability to throw the ball. We know he is capable of doing it. We've seen him snap a couple off. But I don't know what it is, whether it gets in his head a little bit, gets a little bit of that yips. But sometimes, man, he's like short arming the ball. And it's like, dude, it's just throw it and get rid of it. Stop trying to have the perfect pass so it ends up hurting him. I mean, Brad, I guess at the end of the day, the way I'll say this quarterback competition is for this season, obviously, you got to get which guy you think has the best shot of winning. But I think the goal in terms of next year and building this long term is figure out which one of the guys, if any, you can see, Rich Rod can see, and who he can develop into, I'll say, a quarterback of the future. But most likely that guy he sees from this quarterback roster that's the quarterback of the future will probably end up being like a backup for next year behind someone they get from the transfer portal. I still think the good thing is they're young, but also the thing that comes with being young is there's still a long way to go for both of these guys.
Yeah, both freshmen, both are going to obviously make a lot of mistakes. Just to kind of piggyback off what you said, Rush, it does seem like going into next season that Rich Rod's going to be under some more pressure to win immediately. Is there any chance that he goes in with one of these two guys as his starter, Scotty Fox or Khalil Wilkins, or are we looking at bringing in a veteran presence next year?
I think you have to bring a veteran presence in next year. I'm not saying you can't keep one of these guys, if not both, around to see how that they develop. But I'll leave it like this. From a fan perspective, if one of these guys is your starter for next season, I'm going to be very concerned. I'm not saying that maybe a whole year that they get better and we see a quarterback that we didn't even see next year. And maybe that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? They get the rest of the season to build some confidence, to learn a lot of things. But where it stands right now in this moment, if one of these guys is our starter for next year, West Virginia's in trouble.
Absolutely. So another point that we want to look at in order for West Virginia to really improve is for next season and to really build on this and have some momentum going into the 2026 season next year is to develop the key players and ultimately we have to retain them, right? Guys like Dior Hubbard, the quarterbacks that we've already spoken to, some of the young guys on the offensive line, a few of the defenders. These are guys that we not only do we need them to get a lot of experience here at the end of the season or the second half of the season, but also to really make sure that we keep them around and retain them.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, kind of the good news. One of the pros when you kind of know your season's already done, right, is you can clear out the benches and just see who's capable of playing and who you see as a player that you would like to have on the roster next year. And kind of like what we were talking about with Wilkins and Fox, right, is you can keep a guy for next year and not necessarily be bringing him back as a starter, but you can know that you have depth behind him. You have the ability to develop them. And, a couple years down the line, that's, when they make their debut as a starter. But yeah, I mean, at this point, you kind of have you've already lost everything, if that makes sense. So you're just at a point where you have nothing to lose. So just see who can play, see if there's anything, maybe obviously there's going to be mistakes that are going to be made, but I think it's right now seeing who it just has raw talent, who's athletic and who's just tough and has that mentality that Rich Rod wants with the hard edge mentality, and someone you could see building around for years to come. It's essential.
Somebody who's a gamer that shows up big in games. We've heard a lot of these guys are, they're talented players in practice, but we really need to figure out who is somebody that's going to step up in games and help us win ball games. And right now, unfortunately, man, I don't see a lot of that on the roster. I mean, we really might have to completely flip this roster again next year.
Yeah, and I think that's something we were talking about it on the basketball show yesterday, Brad, is something we don't like it, but it's something that we're going to have to get used to as West Virginia fans of whether it's basketball, whether it's football, there's just going to be turnover every year. And our coaching staff and our athletic department needs to be prepared to making a new roster. I know we've talked about it all off season. We've heard countless times on these networks, ESPN, Fox, about, West Virginia has 70, 80 new players this year. Well, I hate to tell you guys, it's probably going to be the same next year, because no matter if the team's good or bad, if we're great, guys are just going to go to these other schools, SEC, Big Ten, unless we can pay them pretty nicely. Or if we do really bad, these guys are going to be like, I don't want to be part of this, and go somewhere else or go to a mid-major or something like that. So unfortunately, West Virginia, we're at a place in where college athletics is, we kind of find ourselves in no man's land. So we got to shift our thinking, and we might as well, use it to our advantage and get guys in. And if they decide to go other places, that means because we did a really good job, and we got to bring a new crop in and develop talent. But we do have resources. We'll be able to pay some guys. Obviously, we hopefully we can trust Rich Rod to develop some guys too. So they'll find the right mix of all of this. But be prepared, West Virginia fans. There is going to be significant turnover every year. It's just the nature of the beast now.
Yeah. Another thing that Rich Rod and his staff needs to do this year in order to really have some momentum going into next year is to build an identity. And Rush, I think the identity that we were supposed to have this year is this hard edge team. I don't know, man. I don't think that we've had any kind of real hard edge this year. If Rich Rod wants to be that program that is hard edge, then we need to bring in the right guys who are in fact tough and hard edge. I don't know, man. I've seen, it seems like we've been pretty soft.
So this is, I'll say, I agree with that. I wish our team would have been a little bit tougher. I mean, it is still football. You got to be tough out there. Here's what I'll say, kind of a con with having Rich Rod as a coach, right? Is I like the hard edge identity is I feel like where sometimes things can get caught up with Rich Rod and where there can be a disconnect between him, the coaching staff, and the rest of the team is he tries to conform the team into his identity rather than I think sometimes he needs to say, oh, these are the guys I got. I got to change up the identity or I got to adjust my coaching around them. I'm not saying Rich Rod's a bad coach by any means. I mean, he's innovative. We know he's kind of the father of the tempo offense, right? And his coaching abilities and where he's come from has been absolutely genius over the years. But the college landscape is shifting. And whether we like it or not, these players expect more from them. I'm not saying we need to give it to them every time, but sometimes you kind of got to know what you're dealing with. And sometimes, whether you like it or not, a coach needs to shift their coaching, their philosophy, their game plan around who they have. And I think that's why we saw when guys were healthy, some issues at the start of this season. I think Rich Rod was trying to make Nico into a quarterback. He wasn't. Maybe that's why Jaheim White got banged up, is because he was run down. Now, I do think Jaheim White's tough, but that's why we saw a lot of these like 3 and outs and we wouldn't barely burn off any time on the clock. And I think the BYU game shift a lot. It's like, Rich Rod, you got to burn some time off the clock. You got to get your defense to rest. You got to get, make these longer drives and you can't be keeping, your defense on the field all game, whether you score or not, right? You got to let your defense breathe a little bit. So I do think there have been adjustments as of late, but yes, I'm all for the hard edge identity, the toughness. We are West Virginia football. I think you can still have that. But I do think within this coaching staff, there needs to be a little shift in the players that you do have and what their skill set is, not what you prefer to coach.
Yeah, you brought up some really good points there, Rush. It almost felt like hard edge was forced on this program in year one, that these guys weren't necessarily Rich Rod guys in year one. And I think probably that was probably because, he had to go out and get whoever he could in his first year. I also agree with about the tempo. It seems like he's forcing that up-tempo style at times, and it just doesn't. It's just not the right thing for us to be doing right now, especially when our offense there's a lot of 3 and outs. It's 3 and out, 3 and out. That up-tempo style just simply does not work. You have to get first downs for the up-tempo style to work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you see it. Guys get worn out. Injury risk goes up. Your defense is on its heels. I mean, hell, even in that Robert Morris game, first game of the season where we won, I think, 45-3, Robert Morris still led in time of possession. I know there were fumbles in that game to help him with that, but I mean, there is something to be said about that. And it shows that you can't sustain that over a season. At a place like Jacksonville State, it may be different because all those guys, right, they want to get to that next level. They're, hey, I'll grind it out. I'll listen to a guy like Rich Rod, who's been at West Virginia, Michigan, Arizona. He knows his stuff. I'll listen, do what he says, grind it out, and then go to that next level and kind of play more my style. But when you get to a Power 4 school in West Virginia, dynamics change a bit. And so not only do we need adjustments from our players, we need adjustments from our coaches too.
The last I have here for the Mountaineers to improve this year and heading into 2026 is to get some small wins, stay competitive. I guess we're talking about moral victories here, Rush, and I hate to say moral victories, but I think that's what we're going to have to settle on right now is some small wins and staying competitive. We have a tough end of the year schedule. I'd like to see us stay, in games and not get completely blown out. I think that's important for the confidence of the team, of the players that are currently on the team, and for the coaching staff, really, just to show that what they're doing is working. I don't know, man. I hope that we get a few wins, actual wins, and in the games where we're not expected to win, that we at least stay competitive.
Yeah, I know people don't like the term moral victories, but I feel in this situation, they're absolutely a real thing. And anything you can do to build momentum from this point on that can go into the 2026 season, you take it, at any cost. I'm with you. I do think there may be a win or two left in the schedule. Coming off a bye, I know we've had, recent success against like a UCF. I know Colorado comes to Morgantown in November. And, unfortunately, of course, Deion's health problems. Who knows who's coaching Colorado, at that time. Maybe some of their players are looking further and other teams they could play at. So those are two potential wins there. I will say at the end of the season, of course, we're at Arizona State, like you were alluding to, and then we have Texas Tech. We're probably not getting wins out of those games. However, when you get late in the season and when you have two schools like that are looking, I guess, forward to playing in the Big 12 championship or in places where they have tougher opponents around them, that's when surprise spots and trap spots can happen where they underestimate West Virginia. So kind of like we were talking about, man, if you can get at least one solid win and stay competitive in the rest of these games and build some momentum, I think we'll all take it at this point.
Yep. And I was just about to ask you that, man. How many wins the rest of the season? I think we're looking at our next game against UCF on the road as a potential win. Colorado when they come to Morgantown. I don't know that I see any other games that seem realistically like we can potentially win them. Do you see any other potential wins there on the schedule, man, other than Colorado and UCF next week?
Not as it stands on the schedule, kind of like we were just talking about, that if for some reason Arizona State or Texas Tech or TCU, one of these schools is just looking ahead, hasn't even thought about West Virginia, that sort of thing, which does happen. And, that's the only way I see us doing something out of one of those games. But I'm with you. I'm going to lean more towards that Colorado game being a win since it's in Morgantown, a team coming out from West. And like I said, it's unfortunate what Deion's going through right now. But, by the time that comes up in November, who knows what this Colorado team's looking like. I would like to think that we're able to come out of the bye and beat UCF, especially with the recent success we've had against them. But, this team is different, unfortunately, than it's been the past couple of years. And UCF is looking better than I think we all thought they would look and how they've been in years past. So I think we're due for one more win. Would love if we can squeak out two more, but I'm leaning more towards one at this moment.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting end of the season. Rich Rod and his coaching staff have an awful lot of work to do here at the end of the year. Guys, Rush and I, or Bernie and I, or Rush and Bernie, we are here every night, 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, and let's go Mountaineers.
Let's go.
Some Morgantown, we break it first. WVU pride, we quench your thirst. No spin, all truth, loud and proud. Mountaineer nation, say it loud. The voice of Morgantown. VOA.